Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Harakakadash, the one is the elder apostles of the most on the rule well, and Shalom to the brothers and work considering truth. Um, yeah, just saw this article and it's, it's timely, it's topical because you have the dollar declining, and you've had over the last few years the mark basically, climb, rise in relevance, and it's obviously those two things go hand in hand because with the prophecy of the mark is what you can't buy or sell. Save heat as the mark, so that dollar, which has been the global standard, waning in power, that makes sense. Because why? It's like they need to get people off the dollar, off cash, and then into just the core payment system, dealing with that mark, that implantable mark. So as on Market Watch, it says China is quietly destroying the dollar, and that will cost you. Fight back with these money moves. Uh, says what the dollar losing monopoly power is a slow leak, but not a blowout. But slow leaks still leave you flat. China controls the rare earths. China controls the cobalt. China, through its Belt and Road spending spree, now controls most of the mines in Africa that produce the stuff inside your phone, your car, and your refrigerator. And now China has figured out how to price and sell all of it without using a single US dollar, and nobody's told you. South African banking giant Standard Bank Group, Africa's largest lender, has quietly integrated with China's cross-border interbank payment system, KIPS or SIPS. In June, Standard Bank secured its SIPS license. In September, the new rail went live, and by November, Africa's first direct one. So what is it? US dollar, Chinese, yeah, yuan. So the dollar's down against the yuan, I believe. I don't know how them ones work. Or Minbi channel was open, a seemingly dry banking milestone that in reality shifted a crucial line on the hidden map of global power. And that's how a lot of these things are. Thing is for actually, we'll just say it. It says what? The financial news buried it under Federal Reserve noise and earning reports. Everyone kept scrolling, but the dollar's monopoly is cracking. It matters to you not because you trade cobalt futures, because when the US dollar loses its monopoly on price in the world's critical resources, your purchasing power shrinks. And yeah, people don't pay attention to these things, as far as a lot of people thinking like the cost of living crisis is, it's called that because it's just, some kind of mystical, deep, ancient wisdom that just comes from nowhere. It's like, who even knows? So people say, oh, it's inflation, it's just a thing that happens. But even that is, it's like, as far as why inflation happens, is a complete mystery to people. They're just completely lost. Like, oh, what could possibly be the cause for, this inflation? Why is it the price of everything goes up? Why is it the dollars I had in the 70s are worth dog shit in fucking 2025? But, actually, no. But then fucking hell. The truth of the matter is, there's Esau, especially with the money. This is all based on systems, and that this guy is the prince of systems, man. Because I'll read this, Ezekiel 28:3. It says, "Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. There is no secret that they can hide from thee. With thy wisdom and with thine understanding, thou hast gotten thee riches and hast gotten gold and silver into thy treasures." And yeah, through those wisdoms, that's how, Esau, and really at the elite level, on the elite level, the top 0.01, when you're dealing with the different banking families and those in like close proximity, They're the ones where they own land, where they own precious metals, where they own, mines for precious metals, where they own the lines of produce for different, natural resources, for food, for things that are essential, things that you can, functionally monetize infinitely. These are the things that that the elite level control. But then people on the bottom, they deal with debt, they deal with dollars, they deal with working, they deal with salaries. People on the bottom are like getting six-figure salaries. And then, in the US and the UK, they're saying even if you earn six figures, you're still not even, you've not even made it. You're still living day to day because, the tax is destroying you. And, the general cost of everything going up and the lifestyle you're going to you think, you can attain because it's like, oh, now I'm six figures. You're trying to get this kind of car, this kind of house, this kind of clothing. But you're still you've not realized that's not the same thing as like if you're in the 80s making six figures, man. So it says, by thy great wisdom and by thy traffic hast thou increased thy riches, and thine heart is lifted up because of thy riches. And yeah, it's really it's caused pride, man. That immense pride. And that's the thing is Esau controlling the resources, also letting him set the pace of how the the economy functions. On top of it, all those frameworks, the dollar, interest, these different monetary systems. That's where you've had Visa, MasterCard able to come together and just say, okay, you guys are not even able to take payments. How about that? Someone like completely unrelated to whatever the fuck they're doing, they can just call and say, oh, we just decided, you know what, it's immoral what you're doing. We're not letting you make payments. Meanwhile, the Epstein files are coming out, revealing that your elite are completely compromised criminals. Redacted though, redacted criminals. But then they can do whatever the fuck they want. The banks will come, with a begging bowl, like Oliver Twist, saying, "Please, sir, can I have some more?" To them, to those on the elite level, because why? They're in order. That's part of their system. But then, the everyone on the lower level, they have to deal with the fluff, the BS. Just funny as hell. It says, what by thy great wisdom, by thy traffic hast thou increased thy riches, and thine heart is lifted up because of thy riches. Therefore, thus saith the Most High Power, because thou hast set thine heart as the heart of God. Behold, therefore, I'll bring strangers upon thee, the terrible of the nations, and they shall draw their swords against the beauty of thy wisdom, and they shall defile thy brightness. And yeah, them nations, primarily the Russians, are going to be putting you America on smash, man. That's the the pride, the hubris. But the Moab's a washpot as well, because that dollar, that system's getting washed out, man. That China's one of the biggest holders of U.S. debt, and that U.S. debt is basically like the lifeblood of the economy, man. It carries around the oxygen. It's what everyone believes that the U.S. is going to pay back the debt, is why they're able to hold on to bonds, hold on to various assets tied to the U.S. and think, okay, there's a point in holding them. But especially with Trump, because Nero's out there being a fucking maniac, that trust has been eroded, and mainly because prophecy, man. It says what this is the financial prosperity under Federal Reserve noise and earning reports. Everyone kept scrolling, but the dollar's monopoly is cracking. It matters to you not because you trade cobalt futures, because when the US dollar loses its monopoly on pricing the world's critical resources, your purchasing power shrinks. That shows up at the grocery store, at the gas pump, and in every aisle at every store. You just won't know why. Here's what happened. A payment that used to take 3 to 5 days now takes 7 seconds. Cost dropped 98%. A cobalt shipment from Congo to Shanghai now sells in Chinese yuan without touching New York. Without anyone in Washington getting a vote, the dollar just gets to cut out the transaction entirely. This isn't about banking, plumbing. It's about power. Who sets commodity prices? Who controls sanctions? Who gets to define the term risk-free? For 50 years, that's been the US, not anymore. And yeah, it's funny as well because the appeal of like incredibly fast payments and low cost as well goes into the mark system as well. When they're dealing with the mark, just like even if you deal with crypto, the a big part of it is what is the ledger, the blockchain as they call it, where funds can move between wallets, now instantaneously, and it's all in the ledger as well, where it's verified and it could be seen. That's a big part of the appeal. And the older systems of payment, they're all kind of lagging behind. So this can be seen as a way, okay, we're losing to China on this front. We're gonna switch over to this system. We're gonna switch to a faster method of payment, and then those things will be underpinned by that mark. So this is the warehouse sale nobody noticed. If the 21st century runs on anything besides oil, it runs on African rocks. Here's what happened while America was busy with Fed meetings. Africa holds about 30% of the world's critical minerals. Congo has most of the cobalt. South Africa has the platinum. The continent is loaded with copper, chromium, lithium, and rare earths. This is not optional stuff. Cobalt goes in every EV battery. And yeah, it's been known like Congo's cobalt is it's getting mined out there by the youth then. But that's essential. It's funny because we've had the big push for electric vehicles, saying electric vehicles are going to save the day. That's how we're going to be able to keep the economy running. So we're going to keep everything safe. Electric vehicles are going to stop polluting, blah blah blah. But then to even produce them on a scale they desire, and maintain them requires all that cobalt, which got 6-year-olds out there mining that shit with their hands. Like what's going on? But that's Esau Edom, man. The way what's presented on the surface, it's righteous, it's just. The reality of it is it's down in the devil's in the details. So this is what rare earths go into every semiconductor. Platinum goes in hydrogen fuel cells. If the 21st century runs on anything besides oil, it runs on African rocks. China notice Beijing has spent the past decade writing checks to Africa. Its Belt and Road Initiative poured money into African mining, railways to the mines, ports to ship the ore, and refineries to process it, and contracts that guarantee Chinese buyers get first dibs on the output. And yeah, even I remember going to Ghana back in 2007 or 8. I think it was 2008. And even back then, I remember noticing there were loads of like Chinese over there. Even like when my parents were staying, the next door neighbors were Chinese as well. So you kind of think it's kind of fucking crazy. Because like they've been invested from even, back like nearly 20 years ago. And, these things are paying dividends. They basically saw Esau's MO of going and colonizing, establishing, ingratiating themselves within there. So all the goods and resources that come out can be to their benefit. And now, Esau got ahead, of the gold of certain goodly pleasant things beforehand. But now it's a new era. It's the information age. It's the AI age. It's the the smartphone era. So all these goods are the things that basically underpin the economy now. Like they said, cobalt, platinum, lithium, all those things that go into electronic devices, hardware, processors, RAM, graphics cards and whatnot, things that you use for AI, stuff that goes into AI data centers, etc. These are the things that now, the economy live and die by, It says what by the first half of 2025, China's investment in African mining was up almost 400% from a year before. Mining now represents 20% of all Chinese projects in Africa. And it's funny as well because imagine there's still, that's just 1/5 of all the stuff they're doing in Africa. There's more, and that really shows like they've basically just taken up the mantle of Esau's acts that he's done in in Africa. But then that shows it's to Esau's detriment, man. This isn't foreign aid. This is vertical integration. China bought the warehouse. Now they're changing the currency on the cash register. Standard Bank operates in 21 African countries. It handles trade finances across the continent. When it plugs into CIPS, every mining company, commodity trader, and central bank in its network now has a direct line to settle in yuan. No dollars, no permission required from Washington. And yeah, I remember as well, even with South Africa was kind of a step ahead because even back then, like that was when everyone still had fucking satellites. So like Sky over here, well, I don't even know what the satellite would be in the States, but it was like Sky was a big one. But it had like it was in because it was in Ghana obviously, but then it was like the main kind of like continent company that was doing satellite was based in South Africa. Then everyone was like, bro, it's like Ghana's like West Africa, like heavy West Africa. So it's like if a company from South Africa's dealing with it, then there's probably a lot of things there, kind of the leaders in as far as for the whole continent, and they kind of set pace with it. But then, so it would make sense as well that even the banking as well, they've probably got the preeminence because they, the way Esau was dealing with South Africa, they would have basically had a lot of that infrastructure set up. And then even with the new leadership, they just kind of slipped in and took over a lot of them things. And then even with the BRICS as well, you got the Russians, the Chinese, India, etc., dealing with them to put them on a certain level. So it says the monopoly doesn't die screaming. It says for 50 years, if you wanted to buy oil, you paid in dollars. If you wanted to buy copper, you paid in dollars. If you wanted to buy anything that crossed the border, you probably paid in dollars. That wasn't because the dollar was magical. It was because the plumbing only worked in dollars. Every international payment ran through SWIFT, and SWIFT ran through New York. Then America started using that plumbing as a weapon. Iran got cut off. Russia got cut off in 2022. When the US froze Russian foreign exchange reserves, every country that watched started asking the same questions. What happens when Washington decides we're next? China built an alternative, and it's funny because it's like what happens if Washington decides we're next is really tied to Trump's nature and how much of a maniac that guy is, man, especially when you compare him to prior presidents. That's really what's been the sticking point with a lot of these people, a lot of these nations, where you saw how the EU kind of received him versus how they received Biden. They're dealing with him like he's different, even China as well. Because what does it say? China built an alternative in 2024. CIPS KIPS handled $24 trillion worth of transactions, up 43% from the year before. And now African banks are plugging into it. This is how monopolies die, not with a bang, but with better plumbing that routes around you. And yeah, it's functionally just a matter of it's technical use, man. It's ease of use, which is funny because a lot of them arguments apply to the mark as well. But then this is gonna fracture and damage the US economy, and people already feeling the burn. Like as far as in the UK, they've been calling these various things a housing crisis, cost of living crisis, energy crisis, all these different things, everything a pussy clock crisis. But then what's that gonna amount to? You need an answer. You need a solution. And, that's where the mark comes in. Isaiah 47:6, it says, I was wroth with my people. I have polluted mine inheritance and given them into thine hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke. And thou saidst, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it. Therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. What was it? Yeah, that's the mindset they've really had with the approach to, the idea of America, the idea of Esau's rule. These elite are really thinking, we're going to be established in that prominent position upon the throne, upon the beast, that, they're going to be in the goodly, pleasant things, that they're going to be, living that high life. But then what says, therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. And yeah, that's really how they're thinking. They're thinking they've been established. But then, you have what? You have the golden age, as far as for, a rule and empire, someone with the preeminence on the earth. We have the golden age, then you have decadence, and then you have decline. And, America's been in decadence since like probably the 80s. Because that's really when the elite were just like, okay, like we ain't even gonna let, the average, white, the average Esau Edom, get a slice of the pie. We're gonna, have everything accumulate at the top. It's all gonna be in the fist of the elites, or which it has been. But in every other aspect of their systems, falling apart. And then people that, they ain't even got, all they got is a begging bowl, so they're fucking ready to crash out. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. And yeah, that's, these things, that punishment, that judgment's coming upon you. Loss of children and widowhood. Funny as hell. Yeah, all those, the downsides, the punishments, the judgments, these things that you thought, being held to account for your actions. I really did think, ain't gonna happen, man. That ain't happening. Lo and fucking behold, man. These different nations are now ready to take a bite, where they were of no renown, man. Now they're all ready to take a bite out of crime, man. Isaiah 14:12, it says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? Lucifer, son of the morning. Lucifer, son of the morning, how art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Yeah. Esau's built off, destruction, breaking down all these different nations. But then what's the truth of the matter? The reality of it is, for thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. So, even what Esau's looking at is beyond where he's at now. They're looking to entrench themselves, become a power on earth. That's what that mark really is the, the core utilization of that mark, man. It's total power over the people. And these are the things that everyone's kind of marveling. It's like, oh, wow, maybe he's worthy of that. But then was it say 16, they that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, so after he's been brought down to the sides of the pit, man, after he's been put on smash and then revealed for who he is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened up the house for his prisoners? So yeah, all these different nations are then going to be looking and be like, hold on, this guy ain't on that level. This guy ain't saying all that. Like, what's going on? It's like, bro, you deal with this guy. You got all these stories and narratives around him. The tall, dark, handsome, the suave, the James Bond. The handsome, the this, that, and then you interact with. You're like, yo, this guy's not that at all. This guy can't even walk right. Like, what's going on? But a lot of these heathen bought in, man. Because what does it say? All the kings of the nations, even all of them lie in glory, every one in his own house. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain thrust through with the sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. Yeah. The other nations are going to receive their own kingdoms. But then what? What's the end result of Esau? Is the only neighbor was promised no future form of mercy, man. Most sides, there's a point that it's like, that guy's not going to get that mercy. Other heathen will. They're all going to be established, but, Esau, Edom, they're going to have to be rounded into bits. And that's fire's going to be set, and that's going to be the end of that. Because why? It's, he's basically an example, a super example of, of what not to do, man. The super duper example. But yeah, I'll leave it at that, man. Shalom, shalom.